My name is Trent Giddings. My presentation today is on World War I propaganda, specifically with Sam, different American artists that contributed to World War I propaganda. To begin, I want to start with the history of World War I. Began on June 28, 1914, when assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand ignited a war. War between Austria-Hungary and Germany. And they fought against, and the Ottoman Empire, fought against Serbia, UK, Japan, and France. And what happened was a Serb, name slips my mind, but basically shot the leader of the Austria-Hungary country, which ignited a war that America really wasn't involved in for a long time until they joined in June of 1916. With the Zimmermann Telegraph. And what the Zimmermann Telegraph was Germany sent Mexico a telegraph basically saying, if you join the war effort and send us troops, different things, supplies, different things like that, as you can see, that's where Mexico is right now. This was the land promised to Mexico, the light green was the land promised to Mexico by Germany if they eventually took over the United States. And then the red line is where Mexico was pre-1936, before the United States eventually took it over in the Battle of the Alamo and different kind of wars. This is significant because the United States wasn't very happy about this, and he immediately joined in the war. The problem was within the country was isolationism. A lot of people believed in isolationism, which is the policy or doctrine of isolating one's country from affairs of another nation by declining to enter alliances, foreign economic commitments, international agreements, etc. Basically, people didn't want to join the war because they didn't think it really had anything to do with them. They didn't want to, A, risk their lives, risk their family lives, completely change their lifestyle to support a war, pay for a war, and different things like that. So what the President Woodrow Wilson did at the time was he formed the CPI and the DPP. The CPI was the Committee of Public Information. He headed up with George Creel, who started the DPP, which got together 279 American artists and 33 cartoonists to basically create propaganda and posters that would be plastered all over the United States with a variety of messages that basically Americans needed, or the government needed Americans to do, because war at that time was very different. It's way more of an effort of getting your people together, and the more people, the better chance you have of winning a war. So the most famous picture you get is Uncle Sam, that came out of this era of art. It was created by James Montgomery Flagg. It originally appeared on the cover of Leslie's magazine in July of 1916. That's a month right after the United States entered World War I. It was at a time where the United States needed people to, there wasn't a draft at the time, so they needed people to join the war effort, needed people in the army to basically fight. Uncle Sam is still known today, still used with paying your taxes, different things like that. This is where it originally came from, was to get people to join the war effort. Uncle Sam, he actually was a soldier based off of Samuel, Wilson. He fought in the Civil War in 1936. The second kind of poster that you would see was an anti-German poster. This one is Destroy This Mad Brood. It was created by Harry Hops, and it puts a negative light on the Germans compared to a positive light of joining the war. It gives a face to the enemy. It was created by Harry Hops. You can see on the staff right here it says Coulter, and then on the hat it says militarism. It's basically made to be a depict of a German. And then what I found interesting is this Vogue cover came out a couple of years ago with LeBron, and it looks very similar to the poster. Vogue actually got in really big trouble for this when people kind of did their research and kind of saw that this looks very similar. So that's just something I found interesting when researching this. So the next kind of picture you would see was using women to persuade men. Howard Chandler Christie was very famous for this. He did his Christie Girls, which you can see here, here, and here. Dawn of Victory, Fighter, Live Bonds, and if I were a man, I'd join the Navy. This was at a different time in America where sex really wasn't as prevalent and mainstream as it is now. So these kind of images were very controversial at the time, just to show any kind of woman without a ton of clothes on. And this was probably one of the most effective ones. After these posters came out, they were the biggest jump in drafting or enlisting came after these photos came out. The next was a whole different kind of war, because these are, what I've talked about is all enlisting posters, but there's a whole other section of them, which was production posters. Although World War I was the first war that women fought in, most women stayed home and were not made to, but were asked to knit different things, create gardens, create different supplies that troops would need in war. The American Red Cross was the head of this. As you could see, that just asking to knit socks and knit different things. So when they're using their time maybe knitting something that isn't very important, what the government really wanted to implement in women's minds was knit socks, knit things that could actually help the war and the war effort. The last thing that was really needed was food rationing. The artist goes from left to right with this is Edward Penfield, Francis Louis Mora, William Crawford Young, and Frederick Hoover. Herbert Hoover was appointed as the U.S. Food Administration. He would later become president. But he was appointed by President Wilson to run the U.S. Food Administration Department. And you saw lots of posters like this. This one kind of wants people to, or schools specifically, to make gardens and contribute their efforts more as gardening and different things instead of learning, really, because the most important thing to the government at the time wasn't education, it was winning the war. It's just kind of sad, but that's how it was. Then don't let up, keep on saving food, and then kind of guilting people into very basic things like finish your plate and different things like that. This one says, "Sir, don't waste what your wife saves. Adopt the doctrine of your clean plate, do your share." And this says, "Save a loaf a week, help win the war." These are all ideas that the government really wanted to put in people's heads, because at the time, food was a very main part. If you're a hungry soldier, just doesn't win. So that's my presentation on World War I propaganda. I'll open up the floor to questions.